Hello, everybody, and welcome to the View from the Top. I'm delighted to say that we are live. We are live on LinkedIn, we are live on Facebook, and we are live on YouTube. I'm just going to ask my producer, Tally, because I saw a message saying that the connection hasn't worked with LinkedIn. So behind the scenes, please do check that. If you're out in LinkedIn world, let me know. Otherwise, Tally, come and check it out for me. So that's not a brilliant start to the show. So I'm trying to find out what's going on with LinkedIn, but hopefully we are now live. Anyway, we've got the most amazing show for you today. So if you're out there, please do join in the conversation. Write in the comments box. Tell us who you are, where you are, what's going on in your world as we start this wonderful show live on LinkedIn today. I'm delighted to say that our guest today is the amazing Berna Anderson from BD, one of the biggest names in our industry, a winner of the Outstanding Achievement Award from the Forum for Expatriate Management. So we've got her. We're going to be talking about some of the fascinating stuff that that Berna is doing at BD, and it really is very, very exciting. And I'm seeing people all coming in. I can see a comment here. LinkedIn is working fine, I'm told by Diane, which is great. People coming in from Boston on LinkedIn Live, so it's great. So I saw one comment here saying that one comment saying, "What's happened to my eye? What's happened to you?" Well, yeah, Diane says, "Have I been in the water?" Well, I'm going to ask you, and I'll tell you in a minute. But have a guess, okay? I want people to guess what has happened to Brian's eye. Could it be that I've been beaten up by a competitor? Could it be that I've had a domestic row? What has happened to me? Well, I'll tell you in a moment. Anyway, more of that, and people are coming in from all over the world, which is absolutely wonderful. It's wonderful, especially as we were initially told this wasn't going through to LinkedIn, so it's great that it is. Anyway, next week our show is on project mobility, which is a great new area that we're talking about, setting up global mobility programs specifically for people who are going on big projects. So that might be contractors, engineers, people in the software industry, consultants. Was it a cycling accident? No, it wasn't, Azam. So we'll come back to that in a moment. Anyway, so next week we're talking about project mobility, which is a great, great subject. By the way, if you do want your credits, we offer credits from ERC. So they're up there. So if you want your CPE credits for your GMS or your CRP credits from ERC, HRCI credits are up there, and SHRM credits. Again, many thanks to our friends at Rocket Mortgage for providing those credits. Did I annoy Benita? Yeah, I might have done, but that's not the answer. And we should see the other guy. Yeah, it was a real big bar fight, I tell you. Actually, you know what? I'll tell you the answer. It's much more mundane. It's simply an insect bite. I don't know when it happened, but it's been about a week, and it might look bad now, but I tell you, it was horrendous a week ago when it happened. I spent a happy few hours in the hospital getting antibiotics and stuff. Anyway, enough of me and my breaking news. What I really want to do is share with you the breaking news from around our industry. And there's loads of breaking news this week, loads of new jobs. So without further ado, let's have a look at the breaking news. So loads of breaking news there, which is really exciting. And a big shout out in particular, probably the biggest bit of breaking news during the week, is Lynn Shotwell is departing from Worldwide ERC, and we certainly thank her for all her support over the years and wish her all the very best in her new career. As soon as we hear who is stepping in to be her replacement at ERC, of course, we'll have that on the show as well, and hopefully we'll get them to guest on the show in due course. But from everybody in the industry, a big vote of thanks to Lynn Shotwell. So if you're out there, everybody, let's hit the heart button, let's hit the like button, hit the applause button, and say a big thank you to everybody from the wonderful Lynn Shotwell at ERC. Now, another subject I wanted to share was we are in Pride Month, and we've covered Pride Month in a number of previous shows earlier this month. But there is a development that I do want to share with you, which I'm afraid is not a positive development. But I do want to share what has been going on in Italy over the last few months and maybe even slightly longer. And this, as people may know, and if there's an Italian expert out there in the audience, I'd be interested in your views. But Italy now has a government led by Giorgia Meloni. This government is having a crackdown on LGBT rights, and as I understand it, from what I'm hearing in the press, the situation is at the moment in Italy is that only for lesbian couples, only the biological mother can be registered on the birth certificate. So if there are two, so you can't have two mothers on the birth certificate. Also, lesbian couples cannot now get IVF. Gay couples cannot now get surrogacy. And more worrying, or if that's not worrying enough, is I said that lesbian couples, only the biological mother can be registered, is that there is actually a court case going before the courts where one magistrate has now ruled that previously issued birth certificates dating back to 2017 need to be amended to take off the non-biological mother from the birth certificate. This has got lots of implications, including the ability to even for medical care and pick up the child from school, and heaven forbid anything might happen to the biological mother. So we're seeing major changes there. The other thing, which is a proposal that, again, that the government is looking at, and this is not law, but is a proposal, is to make it illegal to seek surrogacy overseas. So if a couple want to take surrogacy overseas, under the proposal, and it's only a proposal, there could be a fine of up to €1 million or 2 years imprisonment. So we are seeing a major crackdown on same-sex couples and LGBT rights in Italy at the moment. Anyway, moving on now, I want to talk about immigration as ever. I'm delighted to say, as ever, we've got Julia Onslow-Cole with us. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's welcome to the stage Julia Onslow-Cole.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Fine.
Okay. Now, I've got here that you're going to give us a Swiss immigration update live from Geneva.
Yes. Well, I did try. And
that's not Geneva in the background.
No, I did really try and go to Geneva. I left my home at 2:45 yesterday afternoon, and I actually returned at 8 o'clock at night, having been sitting at Heathrow with 2 cancelled planes, and then I had to go through immigration to get out again. So I've given up. So I'm not in Geneva, but it's still a Swiss update.
Okay, so so tell us about the Swiss update.
Okay, so I just wanted to give a big shout out to Anna Santos, who's in our Swiss office, for helping me with this. But Switzerland has a very special place in Europe. It has several bilateral agreements with the EU, but it's not strictly part of the EU. And after COVID, the economy, really grew, and it's been very strong. So unemployment is about 1 to 2%, and inflation at 2%. And you're just not seeing in Switzerland these huge spikes of inflation that you're seeing in Germany and the UK. And the rules in Switzerland are different than obviously the EU. For EU nationals, they do have complete freedom of movement. So EU nationals can go and live in Switzerland, and they can, as long as they have the funds, they don't even need to take employment, and they can enjoy special tax statuses that Switzerland affords. So they get easy access. But for non-EU citizens, it's much more complex. Now, what's happened is there's a lot of shortage skills, and a lot of companies in Switzerland were complaining to the government because they can't fill IT and science vacancies. And so on the 1st of January, the Swiss government tried to make things better and said that, if you're hiring a non-EU citizen and you can prove that you're really struggling to fill that vacancy, you don't have to advertise. And also they were speeding up the process. So that was very positive. And in addition, they were giving special rules to non-EU students who were graduating in Switzerland to encourage them to stay on and work and keep them in Switzerland. Now, basically, I've got 3 big tips, really, for companies who have people in Switzerland. The first is you always have to remember that Switzerland is a federal government, and each of the cantons, like Zurich, Geneva, they have full discretion as how they apply the law. So I've just been talking about all these wonderful exceptions. And Zurich, for example, introduced all these laws, and it's very good, but Geneva hasn't implemented them so well. So you can't assume that just because, one process is in Zurich and it's working well, the same will be in Geneva. You have to check the details in each canton. The second tip is that even for EU citizens, there is a process. So although I said they get freedom of movement, you still have to comply with a process and register them. And there's obviously social security and tax implications as well. And all the agencies are very well joined up. So we've had lots of cases where there's been inspections and the authorities are not that pleased that people haven't been registered. So it's something that you must think about. And, some people have to register by post, some have to do it by person, the rules change, but you've got to really think about the process. And then the final thing is that if you have someone who's a non-EU national in one EU country, like, for example, Germany, a US citizen in Germany, and they've got permission, there is a provision where they can, under some circumstances, go and work in another EU country. So if you had a US citizen working in Germany, they could move to France under some circumstances and work. This does not apply to Switzerland. This sort of case scenario is called Van der Els, after a case, Van der Els case. But it doesn't apply to Switzerland. So people get fooled to think that the full EU rules apply because, there's freedom of movement, but there isn't. So you have to think of Switzerland as always being slightly different. So those are my 3 top tips.
Okay, so the takeaway from that, fascinating advice, but always treat Switzerland as being slightly different. Don't assume normal rules apply when looking at Switzerland. Great advice, Julia. We're now going to bring on Julie Barron to talk about tax. So everybody, you know how it works. If you want to show your appreciation to Julia and to welcome Julia onto the stage, please, everybody, hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's say hello to the wonderful Julie Barron. Julie, how great to have you on with us again. It's been a couple of weeks now.
I know. How are you, Brian?
Yeah, really, really good. And what are you going to be talking to us about today?
Today, I'm going to talk about Australia and a ruling that came out about residency.
Go for it.
Yeah, all right. So there's a ruling that came out earlier this month about residency in Australia. And while it didn't really contain anything new and exciting, what the news was what it didn't contain. So I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about Australian residency. I thought I'd give everybody a little bit of refresher on what the rules are in Australia, and then we can talk about what it didn't contain. There was an initial ruling that was.
Oh no, we've lost you. Oh, you come back. We lost you for a second.
Oh goodness. Okay, I'm back.
Okay, keep going.
All right. Yeah. So there was a ruling a couple years ago that came out that was a draft, and there were lots of comments made on that. And basically, the comments did not. A lot of the comments meant that some of the initial draft was not included in this ruling. So that's good news. So if we want to go back to what does it mean to be a resident of Australia, there's 4 tests that you fall under, and the 3 of the tests are very subjective. So there's not a lot of hard and fast rules. And so when you're looking at whether you're determining whether someone's a resident of Australia, you first have to look and see, are they ordinarily a resident? So, your basic Australian citizen who lives in Australia, right? They're going to be an Australian resident. And then the second test is the domicile test. And this is the one that initially had been changed in the draft ruling, but where this was not included in the final ruling that we just got, where they were trying to catch Australians who came back to Australia for a temporary purpose and make them resident. So what the Australian government has been saying is that if you're domiciled in Australia, if you leave for a certain period of time, you can only break residency if you have a permanent place of abode somewhere else. And so what this nice ruling does is give many, many examples of ways that you can kind of fit your case into the examples. But they're saying as a general rule of thumb, someone has to be gone at least 2 years and establish residency somewhere else in order to break residency with Australia. And the reason that's important, and I've actually seen this recently on one of my clients, is that when you have expats that are leaving, you need to really look at all of their facts and circumstances to make sure that you as an employer don't continue to have some kind of withholding obligation, filing obligation, all those things that would cause you a problem if someone did maintain their residency in Australia. So you want to make sure that when someone has their tax briefing, they're actually going to be gone long enough and their facts and circumstances really fit the case to break residency with Australia. Like I said, I actually had a recent case where someone did not break residency. The other thing that's in this ruling, like I said, is there's lots and lots of examples. There's actually 18 examples. And what they've done is, because the old examples were about 25 years old, they've made them more modern. So there's a lot of examples about remote working or, holiday makers who just go to Australia and get a job waitressing and they're there for 9 months. Does that make them a resident under the 183-day rule test? Because one of the other tests is an 183-day rule test.
It's interesting seeing the authorities beginning to get up to date with post-pandemic ways of working. So, I mean, that's probably got broader ramifications for other countries around the world might look at doing similar things.
That's right. That's right. So the best part of this ruling is really the examples that are really modern examples of how people are really living and working nowadays. But the good news is for Australians who go back to Australia temporarily and then leave again, that they probably won't be caught under these rules that were in that draft ruling. So that's the update from Australia. Interesting stuff, if you ask me. But again, I'm the tax person, so.
No, that's amazing. That's a really, really interesting update. I had a tax background myself once upon a time, so I'm not feeling it. But really interesting update, Julie. Much appreciated. So we're now going to bring Tally on stage. So we'll say goodbye to you, Julia. So everybody, hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's say goodbye for the moment to the wonderful Julie Barron. And off she goes. And let's bring onto stage the equally wonderful Tally. So Tally, what's up? What's our news? Tell us what's news.
Hello, Brian. The main news is that LinkedIn is kind of acting on us. So I had a few emails already coming to me, people saying that they cannot connect. So please just continue. If you have troubles with LinkedIn today, just keep refreshing the link. And I also sent a link to YouTube, so you can also watch us on YouTube. And I've shared the link if you have any troubles. So you may see that in the comments.
We've actually got, looking at my screen, we've got nearly 200 people watching us live. So big shout out to everybody out there in LinkedIn. So obviously it's working for most people.
For most people.
At the beginning. Anyway,
yeah. Okay, I'm going to be really fast. I wanted to say that last week I invited the changemakers to the changemakers call, and the big news that I shared with them there is that we have a new changemakers platform. And the most exciting thing is that going forward, once we finish the transition into the new platform, the changemakers will be able to try the cost estimate tool and the what if scenario of Benivo. And that's, of course, with no cost, like with clients where they don't have any additional cost. They'll be able to try that. It's going to be for a limited time, but yeah, for now, it's going to be open for all change makers to try. So that was really exciting in that call. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that the staffing survey that we did is now available for download, and I'll share the link to it. And the last thing is that we now have another benchmark survey that we're running about domestic U.S. domestic relocation. That's open for corporates only. So I will also share the link to this survey.
And I must say, this new cost estimate tool that we're sharing with the change makers and obviously with clients is just extraordinary, because whereas a traditional cost estimate just gives you the answer to say, well, this is what the cost is of an assignment. What this is doing now is it's actually saying this is what the cost of the assignment, but actually it then runs maybe, I don't know how many, but maybe 1,000 or more different scenarios in the background. And it said, well, actually, if you change this, you change that, you can reduce the cost. So for example,
and in the demo, we saw that you can actually reduce it by 50%. So this is really meaningful changes that you can enter into your program with no big changes.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Anyway, thank you so much for that, Tally. We're now going to welcome the stage. I'm so excited. I've known Berna a few years now. She's one of the legends of our industry. I'm super excited that Berna is joining us. Berna Anderson from BD. So everybody, you know how it works. Let's share the love. Please hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's welcome to the stage Berna Anderson. I'm so excited. You're here. We finally got you on the show to talk about everything at BD. It's just great. And
thanks, Brian. I'm equally excited.
I remember, you won the Outstanding Achievement Award, didn't you, at the Emmas a few years back? So that must have been great.
Yeah, 2018, actually. That was an exciting year.
Okay, and someone said, love the accent. Now, people sometimes say to me, where in the US is Berna from? Okay.
And I love how Berna was spelled. That's like the Starbucks spelling I usually get.
Yeah. So, okay. So out in the audience, we're not going to tell you yet, but out in the audience, and if you know, don't give it away. But if you don't know, have a guess. Where in the US is Berna from? Okay, so and where in fact are you sitting today? We know that's not where you're from originally. Where are you sitting today?
I'm in Houston, Texas.
Okay, cool. So whilst people are giving us their thoughts about where Berna's from, and we'll see what comes up on screen, tell us a bit about BD. Tell us a bit about the company.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I've joined BD actually about 5.5 years ago, and BD is a medical device and medical technology company. Our mission is to advance the world of health and improve worker and patient safety. We have over 75,000 employees in about 190 countries, actually. Our revenue is shy of about 19-20 billion, and we invest about 1 billion a year in R&D. Our global headquarters is actually in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. I am in Houston, Texas, because that's where I was originally hired at. And I think what's most important, and I always like to say that, is we invented the first syringe. So 1924, we invented the first insulin syringe, and BD was actually founded in 1897. So we are a company with a rich and long history. So as you can tell, I'm really excited about BD, so I could continue talking about BD.
Okay, and a lot of people are putting up here, we had the Southeast, but a lot of people said not the US. So tell us a bit about yourself then, Berna. Where are you from originally?
Yeah, I was actually born and I grew up in Germany. I grew up in Frankfurt, Germany, actually, Frankfurt, Maine, not on the east side. And I came to the US as an adult. I know we chatted about when that was and how old I was at that time, which aged me terribly. But yeah, I was.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, we won't talk about that now. But yeah, and I was born to parents that originally initially immigrated to Germany, so my background is a little bit mixed.
Okay, so your parents immigrated to Germany, and then you immigrated from Germany. So you're like sort of a double immigrant.
Double immigrant, yeah. Actually,
Did they move with you? Did they move with you to the US?
No. I was an adult at the time, but I came for work. I worked for PwC at the time, and they sent me to New York. So I have a background as well in tech. So I thought what Julie was talking about was exciting.
Okay, so Manhattan, very good from the
Manhattan, yes, exactly.
Manhattan, yeah. So exactly, so it's nearly the US.
Nearly.
Okay, so anyway, so BD is an amazing company, and obviously I think we're all grateful to the syringes that you make, if nothing else, over the last few years. I expect we've all had a shot of BD in our arm, or not, yeah, a BD
Yeah.
a syringe in our arm.
I think the product that everybody knows is the Vacutainer. So when you ever get blood taken at the hospital, those little things that have the colorful ring around it, we make those.
Wow. Okay. A great service there to humanity. Let's take it down a level. Let's talk about mobility at BD. Tell us a bit about your program, the volumes, the locations, the team. Tell us a bit about the program.
Yeah, so we migrated from a more decentralized program to a centralized program over the past 5 years. I want to say 5.5 years. We used to have several vendors managing, different areas, and we consolidated all that in 2018. And we also rolled out our Core Flex program at the time. We have a mid-sized program, I call it, several hundred. So we manage more than 1,000 files, but we have about 500 initiations a year, nicely, spread around across domestic, U.S. domestic, and international. Our program, as I said, it's Core Flex, is mainly a permanent transfer program. So we, for international, we don't do a lot of assignments, long-term assignments. We actually do have the majority of our international moves are permanent transfers. I have a team, or we are a team, I should say, of 9, regionally dispersed. I should
You
say.
do give them a shout out. I mean, there's lots
And
of
the
really
most fantastic team, I have to say. I am very, very lucky to have a very strong team, and they're just amazing. Yeah, so that's the program.
Excellent, and certainly I know many of the people on the BD team. You really do have the most fantastic team out there. So shout out to you and all your colleagues and the great work that you do. Now, tell me, I'm looking at your background here, and it says one team, and I know that's a really big thing at BD. So tell us a bit about one team and what you guys are up to.
Yeah, so the one team is our one HR team, and it's actually not an initiative. It's actually really who we are. We at BD work really seamlessly across the function, be it you are in the COE or you're in the shared service center or you're an HR business partner. There is many projects and initiatives that we work together, but we also, have a lot of team efforts. Like when we in mobility work on a project to have a group move from one place to another, it's really a one team effort, right? There's somebody from Total Rewards, there's the HR business partners, the finance partners who are not part of HR, but we really work seamlessly as one team. And it's really truly what makes BD what it is, the people who work there.
Okay, but so you work as one team, but what's the actual reporting line? Where do you report into?
I report into the Senior Vice President for Total Rewards, who reports into the Chief People Officer.
Okay, so you report in, and where would you see your main client? Is it through reward? Is your main client coming through talent, or is it the line, or?
So our main stakeholders are the HR leaders and the business directly. So my team, we work directly with the business leaders and collaborate with them directly. We do collaborate with talent on strategy and things like that, but I would say our clients is the business.
Okay. Tell me a bit about the link with talent. I mean, that's something which I know you're very passionate about. So how do you link with talent, and how do you go about supporting the talent agenda?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
historically, we linked really closely with talent acquisition. And I have to say, over the years, that bond and that relationship has strengthened. So we really, we do trainings together, we share information together, and we really work very closely with talent acquisition. Especially on the domestic side, because there's a lot of new hires as well, but there's a very, very close connection with talent acquisition. The connection with talent management is a little bit newer and younger. We are a program that is very much at the receiving end of deployment, as I call it, right? So we are getting called at the time the candidate is selected, the internal candidate, and then we start the conversation about mobility. And I have been trying to change that and be more strategic and proactive about that. And we have started at BD an initiative for internal mobility, as have other companies as well. So we are putting together a framework to enhance internal mobility that also includes global mobility. And since we've been doing that, there has been a stronger bond with talent management, and we have been collaborating quite actively together on that.
Can you drill down on that and give us a bit of a better idea as to what that means on a day-to-day basis in practice?
Yeah, so it's still in development. So the day-to-day basic, but internal mobility is all about how do we enhance and enable our internal career development and have an internal first mindset before we go and hire externally. And that goes through different levels of the organization, right? There's the talent acquisition piece, there's the policy piece, there's the succession planning piece, and all those things. And one part of that is the mobility piece, which means like if someone, not every time when an internal employee mobilizes, there's actually global mobility. Sometimes they stay put, right? So we have been looking into redefining our policies. As I said, we implemented Core Flex in 2018, and they are quite complex, our policies. So we're looking into simplifying our policies, but also cater more towards early career options. So we have a better, we enable more early career deployments across the organization.
Okay, I love that phrase, internal first.
Yeah.
That's, if you like, is your North Star, your guiding light. That if you can move somebody internally first rather than
Yes.
recruit externally, obviously it's going to be a lot cheaper to do it that way, and also hopefully it's meeting more people's internal aspirations.
Yeah, and it's not, and the aspect, the important aspect with that is also with the internal first. You know, mobility is never perceived being cheap, right? Mobility is always perceived for being expensive. So it's part of that is also an endeavor to make it cheaper and make it affordable, especially for those populations. They might not be eligible for mobility or haven't been so far.
Okay. I asked where mobility sits, and I know you said it sits in reward. What would you see as the benefits? Because I've had other guests on who, you know, they sit in talent
Yeah.
or other areas. You know, what's your view as to the pros and cons of different places to sit?
I think it really depends on the organization, and it really depends on the size of your program and how your organization is structured. Selfishly, I would love to report to the CHRO directly, right? Because more visibility, more opportunity. I do think when you look at mobility programs and how they are developing over time, for me, an advanced program should have a strong connection to talent and maybe even report into talent, depending again on the size of the program. I think total rewards, when you look at surveys, is probably the most prominent place mobility usually sits, at least in multinational companies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is the case. I mean, I remember doing surveys a few years ago, and I don't know. I guess it might still be the same, where the vast majority of people reported into rewards. Although interestingly, when you then ask people where they wanted to report, quite often it was different.
Yeah. So it depends. I think it really depends on the culture of the organization as well, right? How is mobility viewed in the organization? Is it a lever for talent, or is it more of an administrative function?
Okay. I wanted to talk about something different. When we were chatting the other day in prep for this, you used a fascinating phrase. You talked about borderless immigration, which I loved, and I sort of quizzed you a bit about that, but it was all to do with people returning to their country of origin. Tell us a bit about that concept and what you guys are doing around people returning to their country of origin. Borderless immigration, as you called it.
I know, and I think I made that up, to be honest. But yeah, maybe I should copyright it. But
what immigration term is Michael the immigration. Yeah.
So what I meant.
Tell us about returning to the country of origin.
Yeah, we've been seeing, especially since when the pandemic started and later on, a lot of requests of employees who want to return to their country of origin, and either to be closer to family, or they haven't been very long in the country that they were in. And there were a lot of requests, and we're still getting a lot of requests of those that want to kind of move back. And most of the time,
that would be like an Indian national working in the US wanting to stay with BD, but actually then just go back and live in India. Is that
that, or we have Canadian citizens, they've been living in China and they want to come back, or somebody, a German like me living in the US, want to go back, maybe a little late for me. But And we've been getting a lot of those requests, and most of the time, obviously, we want to keep the talent and do what we can to keep the talent. And very often, those want to continue their role in the other country. And that's where the connection with talent also came into play, because we looked into all those situations and evaluated whether their role can be done from their home country. There's a corporate tax impact, there's a regulatory impact, but we also have been working with our HR colleagues and with talent on how that impacts the employee's career path and whether it impacts the employee's career path. Obviously, time zones and all that needs to be worked out, right? So we had a lot of those requests, and most of the time, a lot of other companies try to find a job for those in other countries. We do that too, but we are also trying to really make it work seamlessly for the business and help those individuals to perform their job in the other country.
Okay. And if anyone's got any questions for Berna, then do put them in the comments box. And if there's questions that you want to ask her, we'll see if we can get Berna to answer them live on air. Meanwhile, as we move on in our conversation, what I want to ask is policy reviews. I mean, how often do you review your policies? What are you looking to do during a policy review?
Yeah, I mean, I always say you should be continuously reviewing your policies and adjusting them. And we have made tweaks here and there, but we haven't had a big policy review in 5 years. And we're going through that right now, which we have been going through a lot of changes. Otherwise, I would say 2 to 3 years is usually a good time to review your policies. That's at least my point of view. But we went through a lot of restructuring. Actually, earlier this year, we moved, we had a team in the shared services center, a mobility team, and we integrated that into the COE. So we went through a lot of restructuring. We're going, as I said, through the policy review right now to simplify our policy approach whilst keeping core flex, and if we can, save some money.
Okay, there's a couple of questions that have come in. We've got a very general question and a very specific one. What do you want to take first, Berna, specific or general?
Let's start with the specific one.
Okay, let's go. Here we go. Here's a very specific question. And this is from Martin Foxwell. I'll read it out. Hi, Berna. Curious on perm transfers. Any issues or challenges in cases where the local salary and or high cost of living, housing costs, etc., would result in a net pay loss for the transferee? Do you local plus or do you revert to a balance sheet?
Yeah, good question. Hi, Martin. We do local plus. In some situations, very often, because we have perm transfers and they move into the salary structure of that country, it does not happen too often that we do have to do a local plus. It becomes a little bit more difficult when you move somebody into a high cost country and then you have to perm transfer them to a lower cost country. But where it needs to happen, we do. Like, for example, we had moves from Dubai to the US. It's a no tax country with high compensation. So you have to kind of balance that out with some plus in situations like that.
Okay, and then we've got a more general question from Sherry Sinaga, who I think is with Airs. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, but I think you are. And she says this question for Berna: what keeps you up at night? Thanks.
Thanks.
Great question. Great question.
It is a great question. And there's probably many things that keep me up at night. Part of that is probably getting older, but from a job perspective, I think what keeps me up at night is to make sure we know where everyone is. I mean, international remote work has caused me a lot of gray hair That's definitely a topic that keeps me up at night. And then how we can further develop our program in a strategic way to really add value to the organization, that constant value proposition that keeps me up at night. Thanks for the question.
Okay, and another one coming in from Chris Furlot, who I'm not sure where, I think Chris might, from memory, might be with server, but no doubt.
BGRS, yeah, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so Chris says this, when you made the decision to move to a core flex approach, what drove that decision? Was it more a business driver to be able to adapt the packages to the business needs, or more an effort to align the benefits to the needs of the individual? In other words, were you doing it core flex because it was good for the business, or were you doing core flex because it was better for the employee?
This is a great question. Actually, back when the current policies were developed, it was really to provide flexibility to the business. And our policies are really made in a way that help the business, or allow the business to dial packages up and down. And the reason for that was we had a one-size-fits-all policy, or one-size-fits-all policies, I shall say, and it just didn't work anymore for the organization, with the different needs of the different organization, and obviously also with the different assignment reasons why you deploy employees. And today we're looking at it a little bit different. We want to keep the flexibility to the business to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, the business really doesn't care what they spent their money on. They just want it to work, and they want to know how much money they're spending. And we want to focus a little bit more to empower employees to help give them flexibility.
Okay, and question I want to ask you is about technology. Obviously, the subject very dear to my heart and to everybody at Benevo's heart. Is with all these advancements in technology, I know a number of your colleagues are on our Changemaker group. What do you see? How do you think things are going to change with technology coming in at the speed at which it is over the next, or even couple of years?
So I can give you my wish list. That would take a long time, but I do think that technology will streamline the way we work more. I've been in this business for a long time, as we know and discussed earlier, right? But I am still baffled how manual so many of our processes still are. I would think that a lot of those initiations and a lot of those things should be automated, right? And they're not. I do think that the market really demands that. We need to be smarter. We need to be faster. We want to spend less money. That's just how it goes. And I'm quite excited actually about, ChatGPT. We chatted a little bit about that. I do think AI will have a huge impact on how we do work in the future, and our suppliers as well, how they do work. I don't have a crystal ball, but to me, I always say the case management and the administration of the cases is our bread and butter. That should work without anything happening and easily. We should not be spending a lot of time on that. We should be spending time on consultations and client service.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need technology for.
Yeah, the way I like to see latest technology, and GPT in particular, is it's like you've got the best assistant in the world ever. And my dream for the future, and I think, to be honest, we're pretty nearly there with stuff that's coming out with GPT now, is that no global mobility professional should ever have to write an email. All you should be doing is asking it to be drafted by the GPT, and then your job is to edit that email and check it's right and it meets exactly what you want and you're happy with it. But you should never have to first draft. You never should have to first draft a policy, a letter to an assignee or a transferee. The system should be doing that. And similarly, I know we were talking about this earlier. When people move, the recommendation to where they live should be hyper specific.
Yeah.
You were telling this to me, so tell me what you're thinking was of hyper-specific DSP advice.
I mean, if I was to move somewhere, how fantastic would that be if I could just ask GPT, I am moving to Singapore and I have a husband and 2 dogs. I like to go to the gym and do Pilates, and I like to go to restaurants. Tell me where I should live in Singapore, in Switzerland, or wherever. And, GPT gives me examples of places, and I don't have to go through Google and try to find my way through all these different articles and all the information that can mislead you, and it's information overload. We know today that our customers, which are our employees, want to know everything up front. Before we even talk to them, they've already gone into Zillow and looked up the house prices of the place they might be moving to. As a matter of fact, I do that myself, right? So, I mean,
You do, don't you? Absolutely.
Right. So we have to provide them with the possibility to get good information without being overwhelmed or becoming, I call it the Google doctor, right? Where people think they can do your job, or I think I'm a doctor because I Googled what it means that I have a headache every day. But I do think that that's really needed, and we are probably going that way. And I actually take it a little bit further, Brian. You said we shouldn't be writing any emails anymore. I would love for the emails to be cut down. If my stakeholders could just ask certain questions into GPT and get an answer before they even come to me, and have a knowledge base before they come to me, it would make everything way more streamlined.
I mean, we are at the start of such a revolution. I mean, Javier said this, well said, Berna, technology is essential to support the move management, while the actual service is the most critical to quality to achieve that goal. Absolutely. Technology is there to support, not lead us. Very, very well said. But some of the stuff that's coming down the road, and again, I know this is stuff that is in the product that we've got on waitlist at the moment, is even the emails you receive, you don't necessarily have to, well, you do have to read, but there'll be a little sort of icon by the side of the email to basically say, is it a happy email or a miserable email? And that's a thing called sentiment analysis, which actually reads the tone of the email and summarizes it for you. It's and this isn't just for, I'm talking here from a corporate perspective, but other stuff that's coming on the way for the suppliers is, imagine going to a meeting, and then you come back from the meeting, you've got your meeting notes, and then you say, okay, well, I want to do a presentation based on those meeting notes, and it just does the presentation based on those meeting notes. And I know that's something that's coming out with Microsoft Copilot, so that's something that will be available to everybody in the very near future. So lots of interesting stuff coming on. Let me just see if we've got any other comments coming in here. Just bear with me. So here we've got a comment from Tom Bruin. Let's pull that one up. He says, how much impact have changes in federal, state and international administrations impacted your policies and practices? I mentioned Italy at the top of the show. I mean, obviously Italy wasn't talking about BD, that's talking about LGBT rules. But to what extent are you finding at BD that changes in governments are impacting your policies and practices?
I mean, I know Tom asked for specific examples. I'm not sure I can think of specific examples, but obviously the immigration changes impact us all the time. The fact that, the H-1B lottery this year only returned 16% rate of succession, right, put a lot of our employees in a difficult spot where we had to kind of work with our immigration team to develop strategies for those employees to retain them. There is tax changes that impact us, especially with permanent transfers. There's countries where you leave a country and there's still a tax that you have to pay, and there's a double taxation, not just because of the tax treaties, but there's like certain situations where you really cannot get away with the double taxation. So we have to be creative in those situations to support our employees, although they are not tax equalized. What's the trend? I think the trend is, and that's why I said earlier, I think the administration is really high quality, but shouldn't be our focus. It gets more and more complex, and we need to be more and more on top of things and better educated and connect closer with our vendors. We need to be really partners with our vendors to get the best solutions for our organization.
Okay, I want to switch the conversation away from technology to a moment to a completely different area, which I know everyone is focused in on, and that's sustainability. Tell us about sustainability at BD, both at the corporate level and actually drilling down into the mobility level, and what your sort of focus is and your imperatives are on sustainability.
Yeah, so sustainability is obviously a big topic for us. I missed mentioning at the beginning of the show that the majority of our employees are in manufacturing, right? We manufacture medical devices, so a lot of our employees are in manufacturing, so manufacturing plays a big role with that. We have huge sustainability goals that we have achieved to a certain extent as well. We also, with our future of work and what we call Workplace 2025, have sustainability goals where we are looking at the diversification of our workforce and ensure that we have a balance there that helps meet sustainability goals there. That trickles down to mobility. Obviously, with the organization having the sustainability goals, we have them in mobility as well. We started making some changes around cutting down on home finding trips, using shipping, furniture allowances versus shipping. I'd like to go a little bit further and actually incentivize employees by making the right choices, as, for example, giving up on the home finding trip or flying economy versus business and things like that. But
and how would you do that? With some sort of core flex or gain sharing, or how do you incentivize people to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I would be part of the flex, right? So part of our core flex program would build into the flex options, incentivizing employees by doing the right thing, which is, by the way, one of our values. So yeah, we would build that in there.
Okay, so we're getting towards the end. Actually, there's one other area just for the last 2 minutes, and it's a shame it's only 2 minutes. But I started off talking about Pride Month. Tell us a bit about your commitment, because I know you do quite a lot in, as a big supporter of Pride and diversity generally.
Yeah, so
I'm going to need the 2-minute version, I'm afraid.
I'll do the 2-minute version. We have our employee resource groups. We call them associate resource groups. And there's one that's called Open, and they do a fantastic job every year. I mean, they continuously do work. We are actually going to partner with them to bring their D&I perspectives into our new policy review. And during Pride Month, they do fantastic things to really educate the organization. We also, on the benefits side, have focused very much on inclusion and diversity, and provide extremely well support and guidance in that direction, which I'm very proud of, actually.
Okay, that's amazing. I mean, it's such a big issue. You mentioned Open. That stands for something, doesn't it?
That's our associate resource group for the LGBTQ plus.
Okay, which is just great. So it's just amazing what you guys are doing, and I know sustainability is so important to you. I suppose, in essence, some of the products you make, by definition, are going to be single use. Syringes and stuff like that. So I can see how important sustainability must do, and it must be.
Yeah.
And it's just wonderful to see that a company like BD is so focused on it, and that it drills down so nicely into mobility. We're pretty much at the top of the hour now, so I'm going to bring back onto stage our earlier guests. We have Julia Onslow-Cole, we have Julie Barron, and of course we have Tally. So the team is back. David says, great interview. Thank you, David. We really appreciate it. And Berna, thank you so much for being such a great guest. We are back next week talking about project mobility. So that's going to be a huge subject, especially for those of you who either serve clients who are moving teams of people on assignment on consulting projects, or if you're in that industry, so maybe in the tech industry or consulting industry or engineering industry, those sorts of sectors where you're moving big project teams. So it's an area which I don't think has been talked about very much, but is a very, very important area. So everybody, many, many thanks to our audience. And all that really remains for me is to thank our wonderful audience and to thank our tremendous guests, Julia Onslow-Cole, Julie Barron, the wonderful Berna Anderson from BD, and as ever, my wonderful producer, Tally, who certainly kept us on the air when we were having difficulties at the beginning of the show, which would make my hair go even grayer than it is already. Take care, everybody, and have a great, great week, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.